Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a little bit. We've had a lot of things going on in our personal lives, and last week Jerry was over in DC, so we weren't able to hop on then either. And before he fills me in, I figured it'd be kind of fun to have him. We can have this conversation organically. So go ahead, and you were in DC, and what were you doing there?
Yeah, well, there were a group of us that were asked to come to speak to some of the senators and congressmen, and especially in the committees like the Homeland Security Committee and the weaponization of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and federal agencies, and that weaponization. The implication is, and the facts are, is that they're being leveled. That weaponization is being leveled at the people and that have a political perspective that doesn't agree with the power that's in charge. So we met with a number of senators and congressmen, Homeland Security, and they were quite interested. I mean, I've got quite the tale to tell about my own experiences with them, but it seems that they're really interested in trying to contain the aggressive behavior of these agencies and the NGOs that are using it as a weapon against their political rivals, if you will. And
who's interested in this, though?
This is it's the Senate and the House, both the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives. They've got committees going on this right now. They're meeting, and you hear a lot of the term weaponization of government. You hear a lot in the news, a lot more now than you do, at least if you're going to a libertarian style news broadcast, or to even the conservative. Is the weaponization of the government and the NGOs is really being talked about. I mean, they're seeing a lot of that with what's going on with Trump, and
right.
I mean the insanity of what's going on, and nobody's saying don't prosecute somebody who's breaking the law, but
don't make up the laws as you go.
Yeah, right. And also is you can't very well prosecute your political rivals and then let your political cronies off the hook. I mean,
right.
And I get really frustrated when I hear any of them, even the conservatives, say that we have two systems of government of justice, or two levels of justice, and it's a two-tier justice system. That's not true at all, because you either have justice or you don't. Somebody's
right.
either getting the favor out of whoever's enforcing the laws, and somebody's taking the brunt out of whoever is enforcing the laws, and it's got to stop. I mean, I know of a number of people who have been politically hounded by the U.S. government for their positions, and it's not wacky positions. I mean, there's some wacky positions people take, obviously, but I'm talking. I would say almost a mainstream position, but they just happen to be on the wrong side of the issues of those who are in control, and they'll arrest you. They'll kick your door in.
Oh yeah.
They'll attack your friends. They'll threaten you, extort you, using your friends and or family members. And I know I've experienced all of this, and it's a dangerous thing to get into, because what happens is the American people feel as though they're backed into a corner, and they don't really know how to get out of that corner, and they only will take so much. I mean, any one of us will, and even a dog will only take so much.
So, or who'd you meet with? Senators and congressmen specifically?
So many of them. I'm gonna have a hard time remembering all the names. I should have wrote them down. If I'd known we were going to speak about this, I would have. I probably met with 7 or 8. We were down there like 5 days, I believe.
Yeah.
And I met with probably 8 or 9 congressmen. And we met with Massey. We also I spent quite a bit of time with Senator Lee from Utah, and I was quite impressed with him. I mean, he's quite a constitutionalist, and he's very concerned about what's going on. And even though that the Senate is controlled by the Democrats right now, and it's a shame that we have to break our government's approach to lawfulness by party.
Right.
And
that was my follow-up question is, were there any Democrats you met with?
No, none. No. And,
did you try to reach out to?
Yeah, actually, yeah, we did, and but the Democrats aren't responsive, and it's a shame. Now they would be responsive.
Who did you try to reach out to? What Democrats did you? Let's just put them on flame right here. Like let's put them on the block.
You're gonna have a hard time because I don't have the list of them to be perfect.
Anyone prominently that you might recall that you for sure you're like, I remember we reached out to this one.
Well, we went into so many offices. Actually, and it's funny though. We did catch Bernie Sanders in the hallway, and I've got to think of she's the one out of California, the black gal who was saying go out if you see yeah, if you see a Trump supporter, go mob him basically.
Yeah,
I ran into her and we told her that we were down here. Actually, it was kind of funny because we just caught her in the hallway, and they're always surrounded by their aides and rushing them off. But we said that we were down here, going up against the weaponization of the government, against the American people. And she goes, "Oh, that's good. That's good." Of course, she didn't mean what we were talking about, but
what's funny is that's a commonality. Why the Democrats, especially the political Democrats, I'm not talking bureaucrats, because you know what, the bureaucrats, the ones whom you're talking about, the unelected body of tyrants.
Yep.
The political Democrats are against police for proper reasons. I mean, the police in this country are horrifically tyrannical. Like they literally know. I can't. You get a handful of good ones, and I will say that there's in the body of police. They always say that there's a few bad apples.
Yeah. But it does spoil the whole bunch.
I think it's the opposite. I've spent now 2 years watching every single auditing video on the internet. And this is all 50 states. In states that you would think, legitimately, you would be like, hey, this is a good conservative state, right? There's going to be no corruption, really, there. It's going to be a good, solid. I have seen, you would think, what's worse to you? What would be worse policing for you? New York City or Mesa, Arizona?
Yeah. Yeah, you would think definitely New York would be the one you'd have more of a problem with.
They're the top two most corrupt, most horrific violation, constitutional violation of rights of their citizenry. So with these Democrats, what I don't understand is that unless if they are just talking out. Oh, now I'm going to say this. They may not be all of them. Some of them may legitimately be like, police are a problem, this and another thing. And great. I think that is an honest to God conversation because police are government.
Yeah.
They are public servants just like the FBI. The difference is that the FBI operates in a federal manner and the police operate in a local manner. But the DEA and the ATF and all these other organizations, their entire industry is wrapped around how to violate. It is like the 101 playbook on how to violate someone's constitutional rights in order to serve justice.
Yeah, and they put top-down pressure on the local law enforcement agencies as well.
Right.
And financial pressure. I mean, a lot of people don't understand, like your local sheriff's department in your county, a number of them are competing for federal bids to detain, so they can be used for detention centers of federal indicted people or inmates, and because there's big money in that. And they give up a lot of their authority to get that money, and then they don't serve the people.
Yeah, I mean, there's I have watched now in the last 2 weeks, I would say 10 different scenarios in 10 different states where police would trespass somebody filming in a public building, i.e. a police department, a city hall, which is constitutionally protected First Amendment activity. Supreme Court cases, there's no argument here. Everybody knows, apparently except for the cops. And
our governor, John Sununu, did the same thing with the state police to some people who were opposed to some of his positions at a meeting, and they arrested some of them for saying amen. Some didn't say anything.
Right.
And they hauled him off to jail.
Yeah,
There's
and
a
that
case
is
going on here in New
that is
Hampshire.
100% constitutionally protected
And he's
activity.
a Republican.
I know.
Right?
So this is what I'm like. What I don't understand is like the Democrats, and this is to the point of like the whole, the whole. This is to the point of what you're talking about. The whole reason you went is this is the Constitution is being eroded, but everybody thinks it's only being eroded at the federal level. Yes, the problem with the federal level is it can actually legalize the erosion of the Constitution. But the problem is at the micro levels, your local levels, every day that people get pulled over by cops, now they have a right to do certain parts of their job, but there's a lot of liberties that they take that are constitutional violations.
Well, they're shady. I mean, as far as like the asset forfeiture law, which
Oh my God! Don't even get me started. I will
Yes,
spiral on asset forfeiture.
they arrest your money. They don't arrest you, and then take your money away from you if they think you have too much cash. A cop can make that decision and take your money away. And then if you can't get it back, you can't prove that. Wow. Well, I've had this money for 20 years, or I inherited or what have you. But if you can't prove it,
right? It gets worse.
Pay all the money to prove it.
Right. Well, here's the problem. It's worse than that. So you have to get a lawyer to do it. And the first stage that you have to do an asset. So the funny thing, in the last couple of weeks, I've been studying a lot about civil asset forfeiture.
Read Henry Hyde's book. You haven't.
I haven't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
one
of the things is civil asset forfeiture. The cop takes your money, right? As a matter of fact, now, if you're in the United States of America and all 50 states, you better bring a shadow individual, somebody that the bank does not see, that stays outside. If you pull over $6,000 of cash out of your bank, what you do is you pull it out. When you leave the bank, you hand the money off to that person. They will meet you then back wherever you got to go, home or whatever, because all banks in all 50 states now are asked or required. I'm not 100% sure whether they're asked by the local law, but basically they call the police on you.
Well, they call if you take out. I think it's now $3,000. But if you withdraw for $3,000, they have to fill out a form, which is one of those forms that it's questionable why you're taking that money out if you don't have an account with them.
Right.
And all that is they want to monitor every dime you get.
Correct. But here's the problem: is that at a certain quantity, they ring up the cops. The cops just sits right outside the bank. Then you take off. They hit you for a traffic violation. Then what they'll do is, now that traffic violation could be complete bogus. Then they're going to ask you to step out of your vehicle. Followed by immediately they're going to say, "Hey, we think you're under the influence." You say, "No, I'm not. I'm not under the influence." You do what you're supposed to do, and you say, "You do not have the right to search my vehicle." That's the first thing. But then they'll bring the drug dog. Then the drug dog will set off 100% of the time. Drug dogs always set off. Just know if the drug dog's coming, they found drugs in your car. 100%. It doesn't matter if you just bought it off the dealership. Then they get the right to search your car. They find the cash. They seize the cash. Now, you're going to go to a lawyer. Then what the lawyer is going to do is the lawyer is going to say, well, we have to sue the police department. It has to start there because you have to set a paper trail. Now, the problem is you got to pay the lawyer to do this. So once you sue the police department for basically a civil rights violation, then they say, well, you win. They say, well, now give the money back. We don't have the money anymore. Well, what they did is they sent the money up to the DEA. Then,
when they divide that money up, actually, is the local police department gives parts of it the money arresters who did it, and then they send a bunch of it up to the feds.
Well, no, it's actually they did it even more corrupt than that. That goes to the DEA first, all of it, all 100% of it. Then the DEA cuts a piece of it back to the department. Yeah. That's important. That's an important step because when you finally go to the DEA and you use your legal route to get your money back, you may only get back 60 60% of it, 70% of it. They can't give you back the other 30% that they gifted to the police department because it is now money out of transit.
There's some really, I've followed this for a long time, since the 90s, actually. There's some really crazy cases that people aren't aware of that happens with this.
There was the one just recently, though. Was it 6 months ago, a year ago? Maybe a couple years ago, where the FBI raided a bank and they seized the assets of all like 300 safety deposit boxes. It was over $2 billion or something like that. It was a wild.
Box.
All of it's gone. If you had any money in there, it's gone. You had gold in there, it's gone.
Saying, don't steal, the government hates the competition.
Right. I'm like, if the government can go and just blindly take money out of a safety deposit box because there was drugs involved in one of the safety deposit boxes, well, what about the other 199 boxes that you just lifted?
Well, see, the problem is with the feds is, it's funny because when you listen to, if you're a conservative or even a libertarian, right, and you have a doubt about, you could say 9/11, how that happened, or whatever, the war in Iraq, or whatever, you pick the topic, whatever it is, land on the moon, right, is if you have a problem with that, right, then you're a conspiracy theorist. Or if you think that Hillary cheated or in the election or that who knows, whatever, right, you're a conspiracy theorist. And I got to tell you, I bet you about 90% of the cases the federal government prosecutes, they include conspiracy. They've got conspiracy with Trump, and they use conspiracy. But when it comes to them, when they conspire to do this stuff, because they're conspiring to pull these antics on American people, all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
but
right. Right. Well, see, they're allowed to conspire. You're just not allowed to theorize about it.
Right. You're not allowed to know about it, actually. You shouldn't even know about it. But if you do, keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, you're going to be a victim of...
Well, it could be construed as malinformation, which is now domestic terrorism in some states.
Yeah. Well, look at Facebook and some of the places where people put posts on and stuff, right? All of a sudden, the thought police come out and go, oh, well, that's a fact checker. And it's like...
Yep.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't a raspberry... filled jelly donut, it was blueberry. Okay, I got that part wrong, but the rest of it, where he ran over 25 people with a dump truck, that's true. It's just, it's pretty pathetic. And I got to tell you, is I think more and more and more about Europe in the 30s is when multiple dictators took over countries, and how the people of those nations allowed them to do it, because it was incrementalism, a little bit at a time, and we're there. We are giving up our theory. Our COVID was a big bulldozer right through the middle of our Constitution, and they're using everything, asset forfeiture, you name it, whatever it happens to be, is they're really pushing. But there is some pushback, and I mean, when I met with the congressmen and the senators and such, and they're a bunch of the aides and all this, their management teams, whatever, is it gives you hope. But I got to tell you, when Congress is having hearings, I'm yet to see anything actually concrete come out when someone who has broken the law, who is working for the government, is actually prosecuted and jailed. I mean, they might, we're going to demote him or we're going to fire him. But if you did what they did in private business or corporate business, if you will, you'd go to jail. Yep. And that to me is extremely frustrating, because there's an entirely different standard of prosecution and sentencing used for friends of the government, regardless of what party they're in. And I mean, an interesting person who's talking a lot about this is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And he's making some very valid points.
RFK gets it. I don't know why that guy is still a Democrat. Is he just because it's the family
I don't know if
name?
he is, really.
I know.
I don't know if
like,
more
homie's going after big pharma more than the Republicans are.
Yeah. Well, Well, they're all getting their wheels greased from them. I mean, Fox certainly is. I
Right.
mean, watch them and see how many big pharma commercials are on.
Pfizer?
It's a pill for everything. I
My
like
God.
the commercials that tell you, here's this pill, you should try this pill, ask your doctor about it. But they never mention a symptom you're supposed to have before
Right.
you call your doctor about this pill. It's like, hey, there's a new pill out. Do I need this? We're in a crazy, corrupted society right now, and if we don't ground ourselves and get back to actually demanding the truth out of our government, which I'm not quite sure how we fix it, to be perfectly frank with you. I'm somewhat of an optimist usually in things, but I'm not so sure that we're at the point where it's still repairable.
This is a great segue, by the way. So I want to close this video off. I want to see you guys on the next one where we're going to react to Vivek Ramaswamy, presidential candidate, talking some of his policies. I want to get Jerry's take on that. See you guys on the next one.
I like some of them.